October 23rd, 1943. East bank of the Dnieper River near Luftwaffe. The sun has been gone for less than an hour, and already the world feels swallowed whole. The darkness here isn't gentle, it presses inward like a closing fist. The Dnieper's black surface reflects nothing. No moon, no stars, only the shifting silhouettes of Soviet engineers crawling along the muddy shoreline. Rain patters softly on tarps and greatcoats. It clings to the skin, cold and metallic, mixing with the chemical stink of machine oil and the musty rot of wet canvas. Somewhere upstream, a mortar thumps and the delayed boom rolls across the water like distant thunder. But down here, where the engineers work, there is only breathing, whispering, and the clink of metal tools wrapped in cloth to silence them. Captain Mikhail Sokolov, commander of a pontoon bridging detachment within the 7th Guards Engineering Brigade, crouches beside a half-assembled pontoon section. He pulls his collar tight against the wind, his gloved fingers stiff with cold and exhaustion. His men stand in the shallows behind him, their boots filling with river water, their breaths forming faint white clouds in the night. No lanterns, no vehicle headlights, no glowing cigarette tips, not with the Luftwaffe hunting for any sign of activity. Sokolov touches the brim of his cap, a silent signal. Ahead of him, Sergeant Arkady Lebedev, a wiry veteran who can assemble a pontoon section blindfolded and half asleep, slides forward with a coiled rope. Even in the pitch black, he moves with confidence, guided by muscle memory and instinct. "Steady, steady," Sokolov whispers. The engineers respond with quiet grunts as they maneuver the pontoon sections into place. The cold water splashes against their waists. The current tugs at their legs, trying to sweep away tools, ropes, and men alike. But they've done this 10 nights in a row. They know the river's moods. They know the risks. They also know what waits above them. Luftwaffe scouts circling like hungry vultures, listening for engines, looking for sparks, waiting for a glow on the river that means drop the bombs here. Up on the ridge, where the faint silhouettes of birch trees sway in the wind, a young soldier lies prone beside a Degtyaryov light machine gun. He scans the sky through tachyonic flecks of rain. A flare of lightning could betray them, but he hopes the clouds remain thick enough to suffocate even the moon. Sokolov glances up at him and then returns to his bridge. "On my count," he murmurs. His voice is barely audible, but every man hears it. They feel it, this moment, this breath, when the pontoon sections must be joined. They carefully align the steel fittings, locking each latch into place with gentle, precise taps of their rubber-wrapped mallets. A single metal clang could cost them the night, and the night is all they have. Across the river, German positions flash briefly. Artillery bursts, tracer rounds. The occasional scream of a Stuka somewhere far away. The western bank is hell, the eastern bank is purgatory, and the water between them, a grave for anyone who missteps. Sokolov watches as the first segment stabilizes. The dull shape floats in the darkness like a piece of the night itself, indistinguishable from the water unless you know exactly where to look. His men add supporting timbers, tighten steel fasteners, and guide the next pontoon into position, all without a single light. A soldier to his right grumbles, "Comrade Captain, my hands are frozen solid." Sokolov doesn't look at him. Good. Numb hands don't tremble. The men suppress their laughter, their chests shaking silently. Humor is a tiny spark, dangerous but necessary. Lebedev whispers from the water, "Captain, second section ready." Sokolov nods. "Begin alignment, slow and even." A faint vibration travels through the pontoons as the men haul them together. An engineer slips. He plunges into the river with a splash, but another pair of hands grabs him immediately, pulling him back to the surface. "Quiet," Lebedev hisses. The river absorbs most of the noise, but the splash was loud enough that Sokolov's pulse spikes. He scans the sky. Nothing. No engines. No searchlights. Yet. Over 2 hours, the bridge begins to grow like a serpent, extending across the water, each section locked quietly into place. It stretches outward from the eastern shore, creeping toward the unseen line where the water deepens sharply. Tonight's bridge must reach far enough for heavy vehicles, tanks, trucks, ammunition carriers, to cross before dawn. They've done this before. They'll do it again tomorrow night, but that doesn't make it easier. A whisper comes from behind Sokolov. "Captain, Divisional Headquarters reports German reconnaissance planes over Bishiv." Sokolov calculates the distance. 20 minutes until they reach our sector. He turns to Lebedev. "We finish half the length before they arrive. I don't care how, just do it." Lebedev nods once and starts issuing rapid hand signals. The engineers push. They work quicker now. Ropes tighten. Wood creaks softly. A muffled grunt slips into the dark. The river answers with a slow, dragging current that makes every action twice as hard. Sokolov feels water creeping up his sleeves, icy fingers biting into his arms. He clenches his jaw and keeps moving. If they fail, the Red Army's entire crossing timetable collapses. If they succeed, Soviet armor will surge across the Dnieper before the Germans even understand what's happening. And if the Luftwaffe finds them, every man here becomes a smear of blood and shredded canvas. The night deepens. The rain intensifies. The engineers vanish into the darkness one by one, swallowed by the work, until the only sound is the quiet rhythm of men fighting a river in the dark. Another splash. Another whisper. Another cry stifled in a throat. And the bridge keeps growing. Behind Sokolov, the first T-34 rolls up, its engine idling softly, its commander dismounting to inspect the progress. The tank's presence is a reminder. Dawn is coming, and tanks don't wait. Sokolov glances at the horizon, a dim line of blackness turning slightly less black. "Faster," he orders. Because in less than 30 minutes the Luftwaffe will be overhead, and this bridge must be ready before the sky wakes up. The wind rises along the Dnieper as the first whisper of pre-dawn fog curls over the river. The darkness is thick enough to swallow a man whole, yet the engineers press on, boots slipping in the mud, faces streaked with grime and rain. Every step is a negotiation with the water, every movement measured, every sound considered. One wrong clatter could bring a Luftwaffe bomber overhead, and in that case, the bridge, the men, and the crossing plan would all be obliterated in an instant. Sergeant Arkady Lebedev kneels on the pontoon, gripping a steel cable. His hands are raw, numb from the river's icy grip. He adjusts the final tension on a section that will bear the weight of a T-34 tank within the hour. "Captain," he whispers, glancing back at Sokolov, "if this section fails, the whole bridge collapses." Sokolov doesn't flinch. "It won't fail. Keep it steady." Behind them, a team of sappers struggles with the next segment. Each pontoon is a carefully engineered modular unit, floating independently but locking seamlessly with its neighbors through steel pins and clamps. The river's current, deceptively calm on the surface, attempts to rip each section away before it is secured. Men shove, pull, and hammer in rhythm, their bodies slick with water, sweat, and mud. From across the river, faint glimmers of German searchlights sweep the banks. They don't linger, but the engineers know what even a glance could mean. Every man freezes mid-motion, holding his breath as the beam slides past like a predator inspecting its prey. Then it moves on. Silence returns, oppressive, heavy, yet strangely motivating. Tonight, no eyes can see them clearly. In a sheltered cove, Lieutenant Pavel Morozov directs a team loading heavy timbers onto the floating pontoons. Each plank is soaked with river water, heavy enough to threaten the stability of the bridge during placement. Men grunt and curse softly, muffling each sound with thick gloves and careful tongues. Morozov shouts in sharp, clipped commands, each syllable calculated to convey urgency without revealing presence. "Hold the port side. Steady. Forward," he snaps. The men comply, muscles straining, teeth clenched against cold. A slip here could snap a cable, sending tons of wood and steel into the freezing river, and with it, any chance of completing the crossing tonight. Meanwhile, near the eastern bank, Captain Sokolov observes from a shallow ford, chest deep in the river. His eyes scan the bridge like a hawk as he signals with hand gestures to coordinate sections already in place. He spots a slight misalignment, two pontoons not perfectly parallel, which could cause catastrophic twisting under the weight of armored vehicles. Without a word, he wades through the current, grabs a cable, and yanks it taut. The bridge groans softly in protest but holds firm. A low rumble in the sky alerts them, a reconnaissance aircraft. Hearts race. The men press against the pontoons, flattening themselves as much as the river will allow. Sokolov listens, the propeller's whining pitch, the faint clatter of machine guns mounted on the reconnaissance plane. He waits, calculating the seconds, and finally the plane veers away. Breath is released in synchronized exhalation, faces wet with water and relief alike. Time is against them. The bridge must support not just infantry, but artillery, trucks, and the first tanks of the crossing. Every cable tightened, every plank aligned, every section stabilized is a small victory. The river, once a merciless adversary, becomes a partner of sorts, carrying each section downstream, but also allowing it to float and lock as designed. In the shadows, a soldier fumbles with a clamp, drops it into the black current. Another bends swiftly, plunges a hand into the icy flow, and retrieves it. No one speaks, not even to congratulate. Survival and secrecy leave no room for celebration. Behind the bridge, at the river bank, a small cadre of men unload supplies from a flat-bottomed barge. Ammunition, rations, repair kits, all must cross to support the forces waiting on the western shore. The men coordinate silently, tugging crates by ropes along rollers, balancing precariously to avoid splashes. Each drop of water sounds like a gunshot in the stillness of night. By 0300 hours, the bridge stretches halfway across the river. Every segment is locked, every clamp set. The engineers pause, surveying their work. The current surges, tugging at the pontoons, testing the night's labor. But it holds. For a moment, there is quiet. The only sound, the soft lapping of water against wood and steel. Then, distant engines growl. Soviet reconnaissance units report the first waves of armor waiting to cross. T-34s, Katyusha rocket launchers, and supply trucks line the far bank, their silhouettes ghostly in the pre-dawn haze. The men on the bridge steel themselves. Soon, it will not be wood and steel alone. They will support men and machines. Lives and equipment will ride across what they have built under darkness. Sokolov signals forward. Prepare the first section for crossing. Move quickly, move quietly. The engineers tighten cables once more, recheck latches, and brace for the weight that will soon roll over them. The river remains indifferent, black and deep. Above, the sky begins to lighten imperceptibly, hinting at dawn. If the Luftwaffe finds them now, disaster is inevitable. But until then, the river's dark embrace hides the miracle of human ingenuity. A bridge appearing, night after night, from nothing more than determination, skill, and sheer courage. And for the men working in the cold, black water, every heartbeat is a reminder. Tomorrow, they will dismantle it, hide it, and rebuild it again. Because survival depends not just on strength, but on the illusion of absence. The first T-34 rumbles onto the near bank, its tracks leaving deep imprints in mud already churned by dozens of feet. Sokolov watches it inch forward, knowing the bridge will hold. For now. And somewhere over the Dnieper, in the darkness, a lone German reconnaissance plane passes too high to see, too late to strike, unaware of the secret that unfolds nightly beneath it. October 24th, 1943. Pre-dawn hours, east bank of the Dnieper. A thin mist hovers over the river like smoke from a dying fire. The bridge that bore the first T-34s yesterday has been stripped of its planks, disconnected from its pontoons, and hauled back to the near shore. Men move like shadows, each gesture deliberate, each sound muffled against the rush of the river and the whispering wind. The Luftwaffe has been alerted to the Dnieper crossings in the past, and the Soviet engineers know that lingering too long in daylight is death. Captain Mikhail Sokolov crouches beside the half-submerged pontoons, rubbing his frozen hands together. The night air has turned sharper, colder, each breath visible like smoke curling toward the black sky. He glances at the men around him, faces streaked with mud, eyes red from fatigue, but movements precise and practiced. These soldiers are not only engineers, they are acrobats of survival, performing a nightly ballet on the river. Sergeant Arkady Lebedev signals from the water, indicating a pontoon that has shifted during the river's overnight swell. Sokolov wades through the icy current, adjusting the anchor ropes to secure it back into its original alignment. Every adjustment is a careful negotiation with physics, the current, the weight, the torque from cables. A wrong move could send the pontoon drifting into the center of the river, possibly hitting a German patrol, possibly losing the night's labor entirely. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Pavel Morozov coordinates teams on the riverbank, preparing planks, timber, and clamps for the next assembly. The engineers work in groups of 3 or 4, each set covering the others with gloved hands and whispered instructions. Noise is death. A dropped hammer, a shout, even the accidental snap of a rope could alert German aircraft scouting overhead. And even if the enemy doesn't see them, the bridge's existence at this moment is fragile, an unfinished skeleton waiting to spring to life. A faint rumble vibrates the ground. A distant engine. Everyone freezes. Eyes snap toward the sound. It is the reconnaissance team reporting. German bombers were spotted near the western bank, but have turned northward. A wave of relief passes through the men, only to be replaced by renewed tension. Sokolov knows they have only a small window to dismantle and rebuild before dawn. Every second wasted increases the danger. Men wade into the river, unhooking pontoons and dragging them to the shore. The current fights them, tugging at the heavy sections, but experience and brute strength prevail. As each pontoon is recovered, they're stacked carefully, out of sight from the enemy, ready to be floated and reassembled again when night falls. The engineers move with silent efficiency. Fatigue is ever present, but discipline is relentless. By 0200 hours, half the bridge is disassembled, the river appearing once more as an impenetrable void. Soldiers huddle beneath makeshift tarps, resting in shifts, listening to the Dnieper's soft murmurs. Some close their eyes, but few truly sleep. The river's dark surface holds secrets, and every night it takes only one misstep to turn the calm into catastrophe. Hours later, as the first hints of moonlight attempt to pierce the fog, Sokolov walks along the shore, inspecting the stacks of pontoons and timber. He examines every cable, every clamp, every plank. He knows that tonight they will rebuild, stronger and faster, ensuring that when Soviet armor moves again, it crosses the river under the cover of darkness without incident. Farther upstream, a small team lays fake tracks and footprints, a deception to mislead German scouts and aerial photography. Their task is delicate. Patterns must look genuine but be temporary, erased and remade each night. The Soviets have mastered the art of ghost logistics, presenting activity that exists only as long as it must, vanishing before discovery. By 2100 hours, the engineers gather near the water again. The river has swallowed any remnants of the bridge, and the fog conceals them completely. Sokolov gives the signal. The pontoons are released into the current, their carefully stacked timbers loaded and aligned as though the river itself has brought them together. Men move with precision born of repetition, assembling the skeletal bridge once more. Clamps click softly. Ropes tighten. Timber flexes but holds. The night is filled with the muffled rhythm of labor, the breathing, the whispered commands, the slap of water against wood and steel. Each movement is a race against both the river and time. Above, the clouds drift, hiding stars, moon, and any prying German eye. By midnight, a functional bridge stretches halfway across the Dnieper. The men pause for a moment, surveying the structure. It is temporary, fragile, but sufficient. Soon, Soviet vehicles will roll over it, crossing the river as though guided by ghosts. And when they return to dismantle it at dawn, the bridge will vanish, leaving the river undisturbed and the Germans none the wiser. Sokolov observes the bridge in silence. Every night, he mutters to himself, we build and every morning it disappears. They will never know how we cross. A distant splash marks a pontoon settling into place. Lebedev whispers a brief count, confirming alignment. The river accepts the weight. The night is theirs, but only until the next dawn, when darkness will demand its own obedience. The men settle along the banks, readying for the final stages of assembly. Each knows the rhythm. Night brings creation, day brings concealment, and only courage and discipline allow both to succeed. The secret bridge continues its silent work, spanning the Dnieper like a shadow that moves, grows, vanishes, and will rise again October 25, 1943. 2 hours, Dnieper River, western bank. A thick, icy fog hangs low over the water, swallowing the faint outline of the eastern bank. The bridge, a carefully engineered ghost of wood and steel, floats silently across the river, held together by cables, clamps, and the relentless determination of its builders. Tonight, it is no longer a mere test. It will bear men, artillery, and the first tanks of the Red Army as they move to reclaim occupied territory. Captain Mikhail Sokolov wades into the river once more, water up to his chest. He carries only a small satchel of tools, his eyes scanning the current and the horizon simultaneously. Sergeant Arkady Lebedev kneels on the first pontoon, adjusting a final tensioning cable to ensure the structure can withstand the combined weight of armor and supplies. Around them, the team moves like shadows, silent, precise, almost invisible in the fog. From the far bank, a faint whisper of engines grows louder. Soviet reconnaissance scouts signal that the first T-34s and trucks are ready to cross. Soldiers clench their teeth and brace themselves. Any misalignment could snap a pontoon and send a tank into the river. For the men, every crossing is a gamble with physics, weight, and the river's unyielding pull. Lieutenant Pavel Morozov directs the infantry teams loading onto the bridge. His voice is soft but authoritative, carrying just enough to coordinate movement without betraying their presence to the Luftwaffe. Each man steps carefully onto the first pontoon, boots squelching in icy water pooled along the edges, balancing on wood that flexes with every step. The engineers guide the pontoons like puppeteers, absorbing the river's subtle shifts while maintaining stability. Suddenly, a distant drone reaches their ears, the high-pitched whine of a German reconnaissance plane. The men freeze mid-step. Sokolov signals with a gloved hand, "Hold position." The plane drifts across the fog, searching for movement. The soldiers press low, weapons and bodies blending into the darkness. Minutes stretch like hours. The plane passes. The bridge, and all who stand upon it, remain unseen. A collective, silent exhale moves along the ranks. Now it is time. The first T-34 rumbles forward. The tank's engine hums low at first, then grows louder as it rolls onto the pontoon. Wood creaks under its weight, steel joints groan, but the engineer's calculations hold. Sokolov watches closely, a hawk eye over a living, moving structure. Lebedev mirrors his movements on the far side, guiding the pontoon as it flexes under the load. Inch by inch, the tank moves across the river, its tracks leaving temporary impressions on the timbers. Behind the armor, trucks loaded with ammunition, artillery, and rations follow in single file. Each crossing is synchronized with care. The pontoon cannot bear too many vehicles at once. Soldiers on foot cling to the sides, balancing while carrying crates and supplies, silent witnesses to a miracle that repeats night after night. As the final T-34 nears the western bank, fog thickens and the first hints of pre-dawn light struggle through. Sokolov signals to the teams, "Prepare for dismantle." Within moments of the last vehicle reaching solid ground, engineers begin removing clamps, detaching cables, and sliding pontoons back toward the eastern bank. It is a dance as intricate as it is deadly. Nightly construction, followed immediately by rapid concealment. From above, German reconnaissance aircraft patrol the skies, their observers scanning the river. Yet when they arrive over the crossing, all they see is empty water, nothing to indicate that hours ago tanks thundered across it. Smoke and ice fog disguise every movement. The bridge is a ghost, vanishing as swiftly as it appeared. In hushed tones, men check equipment, resecure floating sections, and stack timbers for the next night. Sokolov walks along the bank, inspecting every cable, every anchor point, every surface touched by weight and water. The river is patient, indifferent, but also unforgiving. It tolerates nothing imperfect. In the far distance, echoes of artillery fire signal battles on other fronts, yet here on the Dnieper, the secret continues. Night after night, the river itself becomes a shield, the fog a cloak. Soviet engineers have mastered a rhythm: build under darkness, support the first waves of assault, dismantle before daylight, vanish, and return again. Lebedev glances upstream and murmurs, "Tomorrow, the second wave will cross, and the Germans will still think it is empty." Sokolov nods, eyes fixed on the silent river. Every night the river carries our secret. Every dawn it hides it, and soon it will carry an army. The first light of morning begins to tinge the fog with grey. The bridge, now dismantled, is nothing more than wood and cables stacked along the shore. To any observer, it is just a river, calm and untouched, but the men know its truth. It built itself nightly, bore the weight of armor, and vanished before the enemy could strike. October 26th, 1943. Dawn, Dnieper River, East Bank. The river lies calm, a mirror of steel and mist. From above, it seems ordinary, unremarkable. Nothing stirs the surface except the occasional ripple of fish and the faint tug of the current. Yet beneath this quiet lies a truth that the Germans could never perceive. Each night, men risked life and limb to forge a bridge that would vanish with the first rays of sunlight, carrying tanks, artillery, and men to the western shore under the cover of darkness. Captain Mikhail Sokolov stands on the bank, coat caked with mud and rain, boots wet from hours spent in the river. His eyes scan the far bank, now dotted with the first smoke of cooking fires and the muted chatter of Red Army infantry. They have crossed, secured positions, and prepared for the next phase of the offensive. The river has been conquered not by brute force, but by patience, ingenuity, and courage. Sergeant Arkady Lebedev comes up beside him, towel in hand, wringing water from his gloves. "Another night," he murmurs. "And the bridge survived?" Sokolov nods, a faint smile breaking his exhausted face. "Another night, and tomorrow it will rise again." The engineers gather for a brief moment of rest, knowing that the rhythm of building and dismantling will continue. Each night they will repeat the process, extending the river's passage further, carrying more armor, supplies, and men. The bridge is a living mechanism, evolving with the needs of the army and the cunning of its builders. Lieutenant Pavel Morozov checks the last of the pontoons, ensuring that every cable and joint is intact. "We have beaten the river and the sky. he says softly. The Luftwaffe sees nothing. Our secret remains safe. Indeed, the German reconnaissance planes, despite hours of patrol and observation, have seen only calm waters. The illusion is perfect. For every successful crossing, the Red Army's foothold on the western bank strengthens, while the enemy remains oblivious to the nightly construction that has made it possible. As the sun rises higher, fog lifts, revealing the full scope of the Dnieper, wide, flowing, deceptively serene. Tanks rumble along the shore, artillery pieces are hauled into position, and infantry prepares for the push into occupied territory. None of it would have been possible without the nightly labor of the engineers, whose hands were raw, bodies wet, and spirits tested by the cold river and the ever-present threat of discovery. Sokolov steps back, surveying the scene. He remembers the nights spent wading in icy waters, aligning pontoons under the threat of bombers, guiding tanks across shifting timber, and watching every section vanish with dawn. Each crossing is a triumph of secrecy, courage, and engineering. Each night has reinforced a singular truth. The bridge is not just wood and steel, it is a weapon in itself. Above, the first German reconnaissance aircraft of the morning drifts across the horizon. The men hold their breath, but nothing betrays the secret crossing. The river remains still. The smoke from Soviet positions drifts upward, harmless. The illusion persists. Sokolov exhales, the morning chill turning his breath to mist. History will not see the river, he says quietly, but it will feel its weight. Lebedev chuckles softly, and yet the river carries the army every night. By mid-morning, the engineers begin preparations for the next night's assembly. Timber, pontoons, cables, and clamps are inspected, repaired, and stacked. The rhythm is relentless but necessary. They are the unseen lifeline of the Red Army, constructing and vanishing, night after night, until the army can cross safely, unopposed, and begin the liberation of the West Bank in earnest. The Dnieper has become more than a river. It is a secret kept by shadows, by mud-caked hands, and by the courage of men who worked in darkness so that others could fight in daylight. Every crossing strengthens the foothold, and every dismantling hides the truth from an enemy blind to the genius of patience and repetition. As the sun climbs, the river glistens deceptively innocent. But beneath its surface, the secret remains. The Soviet bridge that builds itself every night has carried tanks, guns, and men across, unseen and unstoppable, shaping the course of battle in silence. Captain Sokolov watches one last convoy of T-34s and trucks move along the bank, then turns to his men. "Tonight," he says, "we rise again, and the river will obey." The engineers nod, silent and determined. The river flows, indifferent yet pliant to the rhythm of human ingenuity. Night will fall, the bridge will rise, and the Dnieper will never betray its secret.